Mm. What's going on, everybody? So I made this presentation really for the team. We did a recap of our presence at IPAWS, just looking at navigating the future of the really complex advanced wound care market. And I want to share it with you guys. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Rob Odell. I'm the founder and CEO of Biotech. We are a nationwide medical device and biotechnology company. We work with manufacturers globally to bring innovation to the space of wound care, orthopedics, and aesthetics. Okay, so let's look at the numbers. So the U.S. wound market size, 11.25 billion. Uh, we account for about 70% of the global spend. The wound biologics market accounts for 75% of that 11.25 million. Due to the 40% year-over-year growth, we have seen a huge influx in different companies and biologics coming to the market. ISPs and low barrier entry is kind of the reason driving behind this, shifting the market share from top 10 companies being dominating about 80% of the market share to roughly about 48% of the market share. So this is a really compelling chart here, looking at the thanks to SmartTrack, looking at the sites of service. As you can see, since COVID, we've seen an influx in the physician office and especially mobile wound groups. Mobile wound, as of today, dominates the market share of all sites of service combined. So, we talked about this a lot in the last webinar, so we'll do a quick overview of that. CMS flat rate reimbursement is still expected to go into effect January 1st at a dollar amount of $127.28 per square centimeter. Um, there's a lot of concerns around driving revenue, commercialization strategy, and how manufacturers and physicians alike are going to kind of pivot and adapt this new payment methodology, as well as the coverage determinations. So the LCDs are still meant to go into effect January 1st, and the implementation of the wiser model. If you want more details on that, go ahead and check out our last webinar. Obviously, the market's a bit shook from this, and so there is a bit of response. There has been a couple of congressional bills, one submitted by Senator Cassidy, and there's one by House Representative Carter that are on the floor due to the government shutdown. Things have kind of been uh, delayed, for lack of better terms. So hopefully, we can get some decision made on that as Congress gets the opportunity to approve them, with the hope of either delaying or overturning the new payment model. There's also been a talk of potential lawsuits due to CMS's decision being arbitrary and capricious. Industry and lobbyist groups and legal teams are kind of working through that. As that develops, we'll kind of keep people updated on what's going on there. So, wounds aren't going anywhere. We're seeing a huge influx in aging population, diabetes, obesity. Uh, we are seeing some innovation to combat diabetes, such as GLP-1 antagonists like Ozempic, hopefully slowing the rate of diabetic populations. Still not enough to affect the rapid wound growth expected after 2030. We're seeing this huge trajectory of the reasons I had just listed. So wounds aren't really going anywhere. But what's going to happen with the site of service? Is mobile wound sustainable? I think is really the question. I think there's a lot of fear for individuals who maybe own mobile wound practices, how to remain profitable and how to maybe cut costs and adopt this new payment methodology that CMS has proposed. And then what's happening in innovation, right? There's been a whole, obviously, as a result, there's been a huge pull out of private equity and venture capitalists. We have seen still, even despite that, a huge wave of innovation still kind of coming through. I think it's been on a bit of a standstill because the biologics market has been so hyper focused and lucrative, to be honest. So individuals have, just kind of kept tunnel vision there. I'm hoping that, some of the shifts will help us look at other really cool innovations in the space. We are seeing things like PRP, the exosomal market, stem cells. I think the current administration a little bit more open to some of these treatments. Uh, even in the device market, right? We see cold plasma, which is really had great results overseas, and then topical oxygen, which is getting a lot of traction, especially in the Medicaid market. And then I would say diagnostic tools has really been dominating presence at least the IPAWS conference, which really cool innovations there. So this is a look here as we were talking about the potential death of mobile wound. This is where we're at year on end here, projected to finish out 2025, with the mobile wound market being highlighted in yellow and where it will is expected to be the beginning of next year. Quite scary. But looking at, again, the diabetes population, I took this data from Abbott, who is a huge med device manufacturer. Their revenue was about $19 billion. Diabetes care and diabetes care devices taking a huge chunk of that, as you can see. So obviously, uh, big med tech seeing some potential there. Again, I think the biggest presence was diagnostic devices. I think just as a society as a whole, we're a little bit more health conscious and a little bit more about longevity and preventative medicine. We've adopted that. We've been, I think, gratefully, we've been proactive and then more than reactive, which has been awesome. We've seen a lot of different diagnostic devices, innovations, incorporations of AI. We've seen fluorescent imagery. We have seen detection of biomarkers, incorporations with EMR systems, detection of biofilm naked to the human eye. So I think that's a really exciting segment of the market. And as of the recent years, we've seen reimbursement as well, and just about all max. So navigating kind of the shakeout of this huge change, right? We As a result, we're expected to see maybe players exit, merger and acquisitions. How will industry and mobile wound begin to adapt to some of the changes? Who are the winners going to be? I think we're positioned pretty well as an organization. We've seen this coming for a while. Looking at innovation, cost efficacy, and diversification in our portfolio is something we've been focused on for a while. Um, and then adoption to the flat fees, right? How to optimize costs, streamline operations, reducing COGS, looking at high value product lines and even some cash pay options. So one thing I'd like to point out here is CMS left one open-ended comment about the flowable and non-cheat, I should say, market, which I find quite interesting. I'm excited to see what industry kind of does with that. And they kind of left it up to the MAC to determine how that's going to get reimbursed. So there's some still cool flowables and non-sheet options on the market. We'll have to see how that kind of shakes out come Q1. And a huge push for clinical evidence. There's a lot of talk. Obviously the Serena Group headlined or co-headlined the IPAWS conference. There was a big presence of open wound registry, and we stole some data from them here. And I just want to highlight some of the really cool things that they are working on between them and the Serena Group. I know there is some clinical trials expected to start through the Serena Group for pressure ulcers. They've spent a lot of time trying to figure out the logistics of that. Um, but data is supposed to be real world evidence has already been kind of collected as a result of pressure ulcers. So we looked at the mortality rate, they looked at the cost efficacy. As you can see, the utilization of camps actually decreased hospital spend. Um, Looking at stage 4 pressure ulcers and how they are kind of like a totally different type of wound, only 10% healing within 12 weeks. And again, looking at a growing population, 20% of Americans will be 65 and older, right? I think we recognize this, especially in healthcare, med device, med tech. I know pharma is definitely on it, looking at different, opportunities to help these patients through their natural aging process, really, and what comes with that. So, some really stuff happening, really exciting stuff happening here in the market. I'll leave this here as a little bit of information about us, our LinkedIn. We constantly have news, updates, and market insights.